The girl's lips were blue. Daniel Harrison barely noticed her at first, just a small shadow shivering outside his mansion gate at 6 in the morning. Then he saw the frost crystallizing in her blonde hair, the jacket 3 sizes too small, the shoes held together with duct tape, soaked through with snow. "Sir," she whispered, teeth chattering. "My mom didn't come home last night." He should have called someone. Child services, police, anyone but himself. But something in those desperate blue eyes stopped him. "Where's your mother, sweetheart?" The child's answer came out in a cloud of frozen breath. "She works at your factory. Night shift. She's been there 3 days straight, sir. She promised she'd come home for my birthday yesterday. She never breaks promises." Daniel's blood turned colder than the -15-degree air. Harrison Industries. His factory. The girl swayed, fever-flushed despite the cold. Then she collapsed into the snow. Before we continue, please leave a like and let me know which city you're watching from. Now, let's get back to the story. Daniel caught her before she hit the ground. The child weighed nothing 40, maybe 50 pounds, but her skin burned like a furnace against his hands. He kicked open the mansion gate and ran. "Mrs. Thompson." His voice echoed through the marble foyer. "Mrs. Thompson, now." His housekeeper appeared from the kitchen, took one look at the unconscious child in his arms, and gasped. "Dear God, Mr. Harrison. Call Dr. Stevens. Tell him it's an emergency. Get him here in 20 minutes or less." Daniel carried the girl to the living room, laying her on the leather sofa near the fireplace. Her breathing came in shallow, rapid gasps. "And bring water, blankets, something warm to drink." Mrs. Thompson disappeared. Daniel knelt beside the child, pushing snow-wet hair from her forehead. Up close, he could see the dark circles under her eyes, the chapped lips, the fingernails bitten down to nothing. Her small backpack had fallen in the entryway. He retrieved it, hands shaking slightly as he unzipped it. Inside, 1 carton of milk. Expiration date 2 weeks past. A math workbook. Every page filled with perfect answers and gold stars. And a drawing in crayon, 2 stick figures holding hands under a yellow sun. "Mom and me" written in careful 7-year-old letters. No food, no winter coat, no phone. Mrs. Thompson returned with blankets and hot chocolate. Together they wrapped the girl, who stirred slightly, eyelids fluttering. "Mommy," she whispered. "Your mom's going to be fine." Daniel lied, because he had no idea if it was true. "What's your name?" "Sweetheart, Emily." Her eyes opened crystalline blue, too old for her face. "Emily Mitchell. Are you really Mr. Harrison? Mom cleans your factory? Building 7? The words hit him like a physical blow. Building 7. Sector 7. He'd signed off on the quarterly reports just last week. Everything running at peak efficiency. His regional manager had assured him. "Emily, when did you last see your mother?" "Wednesday morning, before school." The girl's voice was barely audible. "She said she had to work a double shift because people were sick. Then she called and said maybe 1 more day. Then..." Tears slid down her flushed cheeks. "She didn't call yesterday. It was my birthday." Wednesday. Today was Saturday. 3 days. Daniel pulled out his phone, dialing HR with fingers that had gone numb. The line rang 4 times before someone picked up. "Harrison Industries Human Resources. This is Carol." "This is Daniel Harrison. I need an employee file immediately. Sarah Mitchell, Sector 7 night shift." A pause, computer keys clicking. "Yes, sir. Sarah Mitchell, hired 18 months ago. Quality control, 3rd shift. Currently assigned to..." The woman's voice faltered. "Sir, is there a problem? Where is she right now?" According to the log, she clocked in Wednesday at 11 p.m. and... "Oh." Another pause, longer this time. "Sir, she never clocked out." Daniel's grip tightened on the phone. "What do you mean she never clocked out?" "The system shows her still on shift." "That can't be right. That would be..." 72 hours. Get me the shift supervisor. Now. Sir, it's Saturday morning. I'd have to call. I don't care if you have to wake them up. Do it. He paced while he waited, watching Mrs. Thompson coax Emily into drinking the hot chocolate. The girl's hands shook so badly she could barely hold the mug. The line clicked. A man's voice, rough with sleep. This is Bill Henderson, night supervisor. Who's this? Daniel Harrison. I need to know about Sarah Mitchell. Why is she still showing as clocked in after 3 days? Henderson went silent. When he spoke again, his voice had changed, careful, guarded. Mr. Harrison, we reported the situation to Regional Manager Richard. He said he'd handle it. Ice crystallized in Daniel's chest. What situation? The heating system in Sector 7 failed Thursday morning. We've been running skeleton crew since then because it's too cold. Most workers got reassigned, but we were short-staffed and Sarah volunteered to stay. Richard said maintenance would fix it by end of shift. So, Thursday morning, that was 48 hours ago. Yes, sir. What's the temperature in Sector 7 right now? Henderson hesitated. Last reading was 38 degrees, sir. The room tilted. Outside, it was -15. Inside the factory, barely above freezing, and Sarah Mitchell had been there for 3 days straight. Where's the maintenance report? Daniel's voice came out deadly calm. Richard said he'd handle it Monday. Something about cost savings. Waiting for the regular crew instead of paying weekend rates. Daniel ended the call. His hands were shaking now. Richard, his half-brother, the man he'd trusted to manage operations while he buried himself in grief after Margaret died. Monday was 3 days away. Sarah Mitchell had been in a freezing factory for 72 hours. Her daughter was burning up with fever on his couch. He grabbed his car keys, heading for the door. Sir, Mrs. Thompson called. What about Emily? Dr. Stevens is coming. Keep her warm. If anything changes, call me immediately. Where are you going? To find her mother. His phone buzzed as he reached the Mercedes. Richard's name flashed on the screen. Daniel stared at it, every instinct screaming that something was terribly, terribly wrong. He let it ring. The Mercedes tore through snow-covered streets, Daniel's knuckles white on the steering wheel. He'd driven this route to Harrison Industries 1,000 times, usually in the back seat, reviewing reports, sipping coffee. Never like this. Never with his heart hammering against his ribs. The factory loomed ahead, a sprawling concrete fortress that had made his family wealthy for 3 generations. In the pre-dawn darkness, only half the building showed lights. Sector 7 sat on the east end, windows black. Daniel abandoned the car in the executive lot and ran toward the employee entrance. The night shift was ending. Workers streamed out looking like refugees. Shoulders hunched, faces gray with exhaustion. They saw him and froze. He'd never visited the factory floor unannounced, had never seen his employees like this, hollow-eyed, wary, afraid. Mr. Harrison. An older man stopped, shocked. Sir, you shouldn't be here. Where's Sarah Mitchell? Daniel scanned the crowd. Has anyone seen her? The workers exchanged glances. Fear rippled through them like a current. Before anyone could answer, a familiar voice cut through the cold air. Daniel, what the hell are you doing here? Richard Harrison emerged from the building, expensive overcoat pristine, not a hair out of place. Daniel's half-brother, 10 years older, always polished, always in control. The man their father had never fully trusted, but Daniel had foolishly embraced after the old man died. Where's Sarah Mitchell? Daniel repeated, closing the distance between them. Richard's smile didn't reach his eyes. Who? Don't play games with me. Employee. Sector 7. She's been on shift for 3 days straight. Oh. Richard waved a dismissive hand. That situation. I sent her home an hour ago. Told her to get some rest before the weekend overtime. You're lying. The words hung in the frigid air. Richard's smile vanished. Excuse me. I checked the clock-in system. She never logged out. And her 7-year-old daughter showed up at my house this morning half frozen because her mother didn't come home. Richard's jaw tightened. Daniel, you're not thinking clearly. Your grief over Margaret. Don't you dare bring her into this. Daniel stepped closer, voice dropping to something dangerous. Where is Sarah? Mitchell. The workers had stopped leaving. They stood in a loose circle, watching. Daniel could feel their terror, not of him, but of Richard, of losing their jobs, of retaliation. Mr. Harrison? A man stepped forward, late 50s, weathered face, name tag reading Tom Brennan, 30 years service. His voice shook, but held firm. I need to tell you something. Tom, you're fired, Richard started. You fire him and I fire you, Daniel cut in, never breaking eye contact with his brother. Talk, Tom. Tom glanced at his fellow workers, drew a breath. Sarah collapsed in the break room last night around 10 p.m. We heard the thud through the wall. When we tried to check on her, Richard locked the door from the outside. Daniel's blood turned to ice. What? He said she was just sleeping. Said we needed to finish the production quota and not to disturb her. That was 8 hours ago, sir. The world narrowed to a pinpoint. Daniel turned to Richard, whose face had gone pale. The break room is in Sector 7, Daniel said quietly, where the heat's been broken for 2 days. Now listen. Daniel didn't wait for excuses. He shoved past Richard and ran into the building. The temperature drop hit him the moment he entered Sector 7. His breath came out in clouds. Somewhere. Machinery hummed, but the usual warmth of a working factory was absent. The heating vents sat silent. The break room's in the back, Tom called, running after him. Through the assembly line. Daniel sprinted past conveyor belts and quality control stations. Other workers followed, a growing crowd. Richard shouted something behind them, but no one listened. The break room door was locked. Richard, Daniel spun. Give me the key. His brother stood in the doorway, face unreadable. Daniel, you need to calm down. Let me explain the situation rationally. I don't have time for your explanations. Key. Now. I don't have it. Maintenance does. Daniel didn't wait. He stepped back and drove his shoulder into the door. Pain exploded through his arm, but the door held. He hit it again. On the fourth impact, the lock splintered and the door burst inward. The temperature inside was barely above freezing. Sarah Mitchell lay crumpled on the floor near a broken plastic chair, still wearing her factory uniform. Her skin had a grayish-blue tint. Her lips were purple. Ice crystals clung to her hair. Daniel dropped to his knees beside her, fingers searching for a pulse. For a terrible moment, he felt nothing. Then faint, irregular. But there a heartbeat. Call 911, he shouted. Now! He stripped off his coat, wrapping it around her. Her hands were freezing, covered in chemical burns and cuts. How long had she been lying here? How long had Richard known? Something fell from her pocket as Daniel lifted her a worn leather wallet. It opened, spilling contents across the floor. Photos, ID cards, and one image that stopped Daniel's heart. A wedding photo. Sarah in a white dress, radiant and young. Beside her, a man in military dress uniform. Captain's bars gleaming. Dark hair, strong jaw, proud smile. Daniel knew that face. His hands began to shake as he picked up the photo, turned it over. Written on the back in faded ink, Michael and Sarah Mitchell, June 14th, 2014. Michael. The name hit him like a freight train. 10 years ago. Highway 94. His car had flipped in a rainstorm, pinned him against the steering wheel. Fire spreading from the engine. Seatbelt jammed. He'd been screaming, clawing at the buckle, knowing he had seconds before the flames reached him. Then hands, strong hands, ripping the door open. A man in civilian clothes dragging him out, throwing him clear. Daniel had looked back just in time to see the stranger run toward the other vehicle, the one he'd swerved to avoid hitting. Get out of here, the man had shouted. Go! The car exploded. Daniel had woken up in the hospital. Police said the other driver died. The man who saved him had disappeared, refused to give a statement, left before paramedics arrived. Daniel had spent months trying to find him, hired investigators, posted rewards. Nothing. Now he knew why. The man had been fighting his own demons, PTSD from war. And 3 months later, according to what Emily had said, he'd lost that fight. Sarah Mitchell wasn't just an employee. She was the widow of the man who'd saved Daniel's life, the man who'd died while Daniel built his empire, signing reports without reading them, trusting Richard to handle the details, and Richard had worked her to death in a freezing factory. Sirens wailed in the distance. Daniel looked up at his brother, who stood in the doorway surrounded by workers. Richard's face had gone completely white. "You knew," Daniel whispered. "You knew she was in here." Richard said nothing. Tom moved to stand between them. "Mr. Harrison, the ambulance. I'm riding with her." Daniel lifted Sarah's limp body. She weighed almost nothing. 72 hours without food, 3 days of brutal labor in Arctic conditions. Michael had saved his life, and Daniel had failed to save Michael's family. As he carried Sarah toward the exit, he saw Richard's hand move toward his phone, texting someone. Even now, covering his tracks. The trap had been set long before this morning. Daniel just hadn't known he was in it. Mary's hospital smelled of antiseptic and desperation. Daniel sat in the ICU waiting room, still wearing his blood-stained shirt, staring at his hands. Sarah's frozen blood had dried brown under his fingernails. "Mr. Harrison," a doctor emerged, exhausted but smiling. "She's stable. You got her here just in time." The relief nearly buckled Daniel's knees. "Can I see her?" 10 minutes. She's weak, but conscious." The doctor hesitated. "Mr. Harrison, another hour in those conditions and we'd be having a very different conversation. Severe hypothermia, chemical pneumonia from factory fumes, exhaustion-induced cardiac stress. Her body was shutting down." Daniel nodded numbly and pushed through the ICU doors. Sarah lay in the hospital bed, oxygen tubes in her nose, IV lines snaking from both arms. Her eyes were closed, dark lashes stark against pale skin. She looked impossibly young, barely 30, too young to be a widow, too young to have nearly died working for his company. "Emily," she whispered without opening her eyes. "Where's Emily?" "Safe. At my house. Dr. Stevens treated her fever." Daniel moved closer. "Sarah, I need you to know." Her eyes opened, then brown, sharp, afraid. "I don't have insurance. I can't afford this hospital. Please, I'll sign myself out." "You're not going anywhere." Daniel pulled a chair to her bedside. "And you're not paying a cent. This is on me. I don't accept charity." "It's not charity. It's a debt." He took a breath. "Sarah Mitchell. Your husband was Michael Mitchell, Captain, U.S. Army." Her face went very still. "Highway 94, 10 years ago. Rainstorm. I'm the man he pulled from the burning car." Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. For a long moment, she just stared at him. Then tears began sliding down her cheeks. "Michael came home different after that night," she said quietly. "He wouldn't talk about it. Just kept saying he hadn't saved enough people. The other driver died, and it broke something in him." Her voice cracked. 3 months later, he couldn't fight the nightmares anymore." Daniel felt the words like blows. "Sarah, I'm so sorry. I tried to find him. I wanted to thank him, too. He wouldn't have wanted thanks. He just wanted to save people." She closed her eyes. That's who he was. They sat in silence until Sarah spoke again, stronger now. "You said Emily's at your house. Is she okay?" "Scared, worried about you, but physically fine." Daniel hesitated. Sarah, I need to ask you something. Did Richard Harrison know you were in that break room? Her jaw tightened. He locked the door himself. Told the other workers I was resting and not to disturb me. Said the production quota had to be met or everyone would face disciplinary action. 72 hours. You worked 72 hours straight. 2 other workers called in sick. Richard said if I didn't cover their shifts, I'd be terminated for refusing reasonable work assignments. I needed this job. Emily and I, her voice broke. We have nothing else. You'll never work for Richard again. I promise you that. A knock at the door interrupted them. A man in an expensive suit entered tall, silver-haired, carrying a leather briefcase. Jacob Ross, CFO of Harrison Industries. Daniel's college roommate and closest friend for 15 years. Daniel, thank God. Jacob's face showed genuine concern. I came as soon as I heard, is she? She's alive. Barely. Jacob turned to Sarah. Ms. Mitchell, I'm Jacob Ross. I want you to know that what happened to you is unconscionable. We're launching an immediate investigation. Daniel stood. Jacob, this happened under our watch. We're responsible. You're responsible? Jacob's voice hardened. Daniel, you haven't set foot in that factory in 2 years. You trusted Richard to manage operations while you grieved Margaret. This is on him, not you. The words stung because they were partly true. After Margaret died, Daniel had buried himself in spreadsheets and board meetings, letting Richard handle the factories, the human side of the business. I should have been paying attention, Daniel said. Well, you're paying attention now. Jacob pulled out his tablet. I pulled preliminary reports on my way over, Daniel. It's worse than you think. 47 safety violations covered up in the last 6 months. 3.2 million in cost savings that translate to no heating, no overtime pay, expired safety equipment, and 12 workers injured with falsified incident reports. Daniel's hands curled into fists. How did I miss this? Richard's been burying it in subsidiary reports, spreading violations across multiple facilities, so nothing looked alarming in aggregate. Jacob's voice was grim. He's been systematically exploiting workers and hiding it behind efficiency metrics. We're going to the board. Today. Agreed. I'll back you 100%. We remove Richard, restructure operations, and make this right. Jacob glanced at Sarah. Starting with full compensation and benefits for Ms. Mitchell. I don't want compensation, Sarah said quietly. I want justice. You'll have both, Jacob promised. I've already scheduled an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. We'll present everything, the violations, the cover-ups, all of it. Richard won't survive this. Hope flickered in Daniel's chest for the first time that day. With Jacob's support, they could actually do this. Fix the company. Honor Michael's memory. Thank you, he told his friend. Don't thank me yet. This is going to get ugly. Richard won't go quietly. They spent the next hour reviewing documents on Jacob's tablet damning evidence of negligence and fraud. By the time visiting hours ended, Daniel felt energized despite his exhaustion. They had a plan. They had proof. He returned to Sarah's room to say goodbye. She was sleeping, but Emily had been brought in and sat curled in a chair beside the bed, holding her mother's hand. Mr. Harrison. Emily looked up with those 2 old eyes. Thank you for finding her. You're a good man, just like my daddy was. The words settled into Daniel's chest, warm and painful. He would make this right, for Michael, for them, for every worker Richard had exploited. As he left the hospital, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Stop digging. You don't know what you're uncovering. A friend. Daniel stared at the message. Probably Richard trying to intimidate him. He deleted it and kept walking. But as he climbed into his car, he didn't notice the black sedan parked 3 rows back. Didn't see the driver watching him through tinted windows. Didn't see Jacob Ross in the driver's seat, lowering his burner phone, expression unreadable in the darkness. Daniel entered the Harrison Industries boardroom at 9 a.m. sharp, carrying a briefcase full of evidence that would destroy his brother. The glass-walled conference room overlooked the factory district from here. He could see Sector 7's dark windows. 12 board members sat around the mahogany table. But something felt wrong. No one would meet his eyes. Richard sat at the far end, perfectly composed in a navy suit. And Jacob, who'd promised to back him, sat at the head of the table, not in the seat beside Daniel where allies sat. "Gentlemen," Daniel began, setting down his briefcase. "Thank you for—" Daniel. The board chairman, Gerald Hutchins, cut him off. "Please sit down. We've called this meeting to discuss your conduct." The words didn't register at first. "My conduct, Gerald. I called this meeting to make wild accusations against your brother while you're clearly suffering a mental health crisis." Jacob's voice was cold, professional. Nothing like the warm concern from yesterday. "Daniel, we're worried about you." Daniel's stomach dropped. "Jacob, what are you—" "Click the presentation, please." Jacob nodded to his assistant. The screen behind them lit up. Documents appeared. Safety reports, cost-cutting memos, all bearing Daniel's signature. "These are the quarterly reports you signed over the past 6 months," Jacob said. Each one explicitly approved the operational changes that led to the Sector 7 violations. No heating repairs, extended shifts, reduced safety inspections. "I never signed those." Daniel moved closer to the screen, studying the signatures. They looked perfect. His handwriting, his flourish on the H. But he'd never seen these documents before. "These are forgeries." "Are they?" Richard spoke for the first time, voice dripping false sympathy. "Brother, I know you've been distracted. Your grief over Margaret has affected your judgment. It's understandable. Don't you dare use her name." Daniel's voice came out raw. "But it's relevant." Jacob clicked to another slide. Medical records. Dr. Stevens' letterhead. "Your personal physician has documented concerning behavior over the past 18 months. Paranoia, erratic decision-making, emotional instability. You've been signing documents without reading them, delegating everything to Richard because you couldn't cope. That's not—" Daniel stopped. He had been distant, had signed things without thorough review, had trusted Richard with operations while he drowned in grief. But not these documents. Never these. "We think you need time off," Gerald said gently. "Medical leave. Let us handle the company while you recover." "This is a coup." Daniel looked around the table. "Can't you see what they're doing?" The board members shifted uncomfortably. He saw it in their faces. They believed Jacob, believed the documents, believed Daniel was unstable. The board votes 8-2 to place Daniel Harrison on indefinite medical leave, effective immediately, Gerald announced. "Richard Harrison will assume CEO duties." "You can't do this. I own 45%, and Richard owns 30%. With my 18%, we have controlling interest." Jacob's smile was razor thin. "It's already done. Daniel—" Security appeared in the doorway. Not the usual guards' new men, loyal to Richard. "Escort Mr. Harrison from the building," Richard said. "Gently. He's not well." Daniel looked at Jacob, his best friend, his college roommate, the man who'd been best man at his wedding. "Why?" "Because you were always too soft for this business." Jacob closed his laptop. "Your father knew it. That's why he never fully trusted you with operations. You care too much about the little people." The words hit like a slap. The little people. Sarah Mitchell almost died. Sarah Mitchell is a factory worker who volunteered for overtime. Richard stood, straightening his tie. "Her unfortunate medical incident is regrettable but not our responsibility. These things happen in manufacturing." Daniel lunged. He made it 3 steps before security grabbed his arms, hauling him back. "Let me tell you something, little brother." Richard walked closer, voice dropping to a whisper only Daniel could hear. "Jacob and I have been running the real Harrison Industries for 3 years. The factory violations, that's nothing. We've been funneling $50 million to offshore accounts. Your precious efficiency metrics all fabricated." Daniel stopped struggling, ice flooding his veins. And Margaret, Richard's smile turned cruel. Your wife's cancer treatment. We controlled the insurance approvals, delayed them, denied claims, stretched out her suffering for 8 extra months while we skimmed $2 million from the medical fund. She could have started treatment earlier, could have lived. The world stopped. You're lying. But Daniel's voice had no strength. Check the dates on her insurance denials. Cross-reference them with our offshore transfers. The money that could have saved her bought my beach house in the Caymans. Richard leaned in close. You want to blame someone for her death? Look in the mirror. You were so buried in grief you didn't notice we were killing her. Daniel couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Margaret's face flashed through his mind, pale, suffering, asking why the insurance kept denying experimental treatments. And he'd been so focused on work, on keeping the company running, that he'd just accepted the delays. They'd murdered his wife, slowly, deliberately, for money. Get him out of here, Jacob said, before he becomes violent. Security dragged Daniel toward the exit. He didn't resist. Couldn't. His legs had stopped working properly. One more thing, Richard called out. Your house, the one you inherited from Dad, I had the deed transferred this morning. Court order. You're mentally unfit to manage assets. I'm your legal guardian now. They dumped Daniel in the parking lot. His phone buzzed, news alerts flooding in. Breaking: Billionaire Harrison suffers mental breakdown. Removed from company. The article quoted Jacob. It's tragic watching my oldest friend deteriorate. We're trying to get him the help he needs. Another alert. Factory workers. Blame Harrison for negligence. CEO signed off on violations. They'd already spun the narrative. He was the villain. The unstable billionaire who'd endangered his employees and needed to be saved from himself. His phone rang. St. Mary's Hospital. Mr. Harrison? The nurse's voice was tight. Sarah Mitchell checked herself out against medical advice. She took her daughter and left about an hour ago. What? She can't be discharged yet. Someone sent her copies of the documents from your board meeting, the ones with your signature approving the safety violations. The nurse paused. She said she couldn't trust you anymore, that she didn't know what game you were playing, but she wanted no part of it. The line went dead. Daniel tried calling Sarah's number. It rang once. Then her voice cold, distant. Leave us alone. I don't know what game you're playing, but Emily and I want nothing to do with you. Lose this number. Click. He stood in the parking lot of his own company, the company his grandfather had built. His father had grown, and he'd just lost. His phone buzzed again. Text from Richard. Go home. Oh, wait. You don't have one anymore. The locks have been changed. My assistant left your personal items in boxes by the gate. You have 1 hour to collect them before they're disposed of. Daniel looked at his reflection in a car window. Rumpled clothes, bloodshot eyes, the face of a man who'd lost everything in 24 hours. His wife murdered by the men he'd trusted. His company stolen. His home taken. Sarah and Emily gone. Thinking he was the monster who'd nearly killed them. And worst of all, he'd been blind to it all. Too buried in grief. Too trusting. Too weak to see the vipers in his own boardroom. Richard was right about one thing. He was too soft for this world. Daniel's hand moved to his pocket, feeling the bottle of sleeping pills Dr. Stevens had prescribed. The doctor who'd documented his instability, who'd been part of the conspiracy all along. Maybe they were right. Maybe he should just... His phone buzzed one more time. Unknown number. Mr. Harrison, my name is Tom Brennan. We need to talk. I have information you need, but not here. They're watching. Meet me at St. Patrick's Church. Midnight. Come alone. Tom, the factory worker who'd spoken up. Daniel stared at the message, then at the pills in his hand. He had a choice to make. The Motel 6 on Route 17 cost $59 a night. Daniel paid cash the last $200 in his wallet. His bank accounts had been frozen pending investigation. His credit cards declined. His entire life reduced to a duffel bag of clothes retrieved from boxes outside his own gate. 3 days. That's how long it took to fall from billionaire to nothing. Day 1. He'd tried calling lawyers. Every firm in the state was conflicted out. Jacob had gotten there first, retained them all with small fees just to block Daniel from hiring them. Day 2. He'd gone to the factory to speak with workers. Security had barred him at the gate. Tom Brennan had been fired for insubordination. The other workers who'd witnessed Sarah's rescue reassigned to different facilities, scattered across 3 states. Day 3. He'd found Sarah's apartment. The landlord said she had moved out 2 days ago, paid break lease fee in cash, left no forwarding address, disappeared with Emily into a city of 2 million people. Now Daniel sat on a scratchy motel bedspread, staring at his reflection in the spotted bathroom mirror. He hadn't shaved in 3 days. The same wrinkled suit from the hospital hung on his frame. He'd lost weight. Hadn't eaten anything but vending machine crackers. The sleeping pills sat on the sink. Dr. Stevens had prescribed them months ago for insomnia. 60 tablets. More than enough. Daniel picked up the bottle, turning it in his hands. How had it come to this? He'd spent 20 years building an empire, and 72 hours destroying it. Or maybe he'd been destroying it all along, just too blind to see. Margaret's face appeared in the mirror behind his reflection. Not real, he knew that, just grief and exhaustion playing tricks, but she looked so vivid. The way she'd looked before the cancer, before the pain. "I'm sorry," he whispered to the ghost. "I failed you. I trusted them, and they killed you." The pills rattled as his hand shook. A knock shattered the silence. Daniel froze. Who even knew he was here? Another knock. Harder. "Mr. Harrison? It's Tom Brennan. Open up, please." Daniel set down the pills and opened the door. Tom stood there in work boots and a faded jacket, looking older than his 50-something years. Behind him, the parking lot was dark except for one flickering streetlight. "You look like hell," Tom said. "Go away." "Can't do that, sir." Tom pushed past him into the room, saw the pill bottle on the sink, and his jaw tightened. "My daughter works in accounting at Harrison Industries. She's been secretly copying files for 2 years, Richard and Jacob's embezzlement. All of it. But she's scared. They threatened her kids." Daniel's heart stuttered. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Sarah Mitchell is my niece." Tom's voice cracked. "And Emily is dying." The floor tilted. "What? Sarah didn't tell you Emily has leukemia. Diagnosed 3 weeks ago. Treatment costs $500,000. Tom's eyes glistened. "That's why Sarah was working triple shifts, trying to save money. But now with no job, no insurance." Daniel sank onto the bed, legs giving out, Emily's fever, the hollow cheeks, the way she'd moved so carefully, like her body hurt, not just sick, dying. "How long?" His voice came out broken. "Doctors gave her 6 months without treatment. But she needs to start within 3 weeks or the damage becomes irreversible." 3 weeks. And he'd just spent 3 days drowning in self-pity. "Sarah's too proud to ask for help," Tom continued. "She's trying to sell everything, her wedding ring, Michael's military medals, but it's not enough. She's got maybe 30,000. She needs almost $500,000. Daniel looked at his hands empty, useless. "I can't help her. They took everything. I can't even afford this motel pass tomorrow." "You still have something they can't take." Tom sat down beside him. "You have the truth, and you have a choice: give up, or fight. Fight with what I have: no money, no company, no power. You have me, and you have my daughter Jennifer. She's waiting downstairs with evidence that could send Richard and Jacob to prison for 20 years. Tom gripped Daniel's shoulder. "But more than that, You have something they lost a long time ago. You give a damn about people. That's not weakness. That's strength. Daniel looked at the pills on the sink, then back at Tom. Why do you care what happens to me? Because 30 years ago, your father gave me a job when no one else would. Ex-con, fresh out of prison for a stupid mistake I made at 19. He looked me in the eye and said, "Everyone deserves a second chance. He saved my life." Tom's voice roughened. And because I watched my niece work herself to death for a little girl who needs her mother. If you quit now, Emily loses everything. Is that the man you want to be? Daniel thought of Emily's voice. You're a good man, just like my daddy was. Michael had pulled him from a burning car, had saved his life and asked nothing in return, had gone home to fight demons Daniel would never fully understand, and lost. Now Michael's daughter was fighting for her life, and Daniel had a choice. He stood, walked to the bathroom, and grabbed the pill bottle. Tom tensed, but Daniel just opened it and poured every tablet down the sink, running water until they dissolved. Where's your daughter? Daniel asked. Parking garage, level 3. She's terrified, but she's brave. Like her uncle. Daniel grabbed his jacket. Let's go. They found Jennifer Brennan sitting in a 10-year-old Honda, clutching a USB drive like it was a grenade. She had her father's eyes scared but determined. Mr. Harrison? Her voice shook. My kids have been followed. Men in black cars, watching our house. I'm risking everything giving you this. I know, and I won't waste it. Daniel took the drive. What's on here? Everything. Wire transfers to Cayman account $73 million over 5 years. Bribes to safety inspectors $2.3 million. Falsified reports. Offshore shell companies. She swallowed hard. And Mr. Harrison, your wife's medical claims. They're in there too. Daniel's hands went numb. They delayed her insurance approvals deliberately. Treatment that could have started in March, they held it until November. 8 months of delays. The files show email chains between Richard and Jacob, calculating how much they could skim from the medical fund. 8 months. Margaret had suffered for 8 months longer than necessary. Had died because they chose money over her life. There's more, Jennifer whispered. Sarah's case isn't isolated. They've been systematically delaying medical claims for years. Emily could have started treatment 2 months ago. They let a 7-year-old get sicker to save money. Daniel looked at the USB drive in his palm. Evidence of murder, of conspiracy, of evil so casual it had become policy. What do you want to do? Tom asked. Daniel thought of the pills he'd just flushed, the easy way out, the escape. Then he thought of Emily's smile, Sarah's strength, Michael's sacrifice. I want to burn their empire to the ground, he said quietly. And I want to save that little girl's life, in that order. Tom smiled fierce and proud. Then let's get to work. 48 hours later, Daniel sat in a dim corner of an all-night diner, watching his life unravel on every screen. Jennifer's USB drive had gone to the FBI, the SEC, and the IRS. Anonymous tips, untraceable. Within 24 hours, federal investigators had opened cases. Within 48, media outlets were circling like sharks. But Richard and Jacob had been ready. The television above the counter showed Richard's press conference, his face a perfect mask of wounded concern. My brother Daniel is suffering a psychotic break. These accusations are fantasies from a grieving, unstable man. We will not press charges out of family loyalty, but we urge him to seek professional help. The reporter. But what about the documents? Fabricated by a disgruntled employee we recently terminated. We have handwriting experts who've confirmed the forgeries. This is a tragic situation, and we're cooperating fully with authorities to clear our names and get Daniel the treatment he desperately needs. Daniel's burner phone purchased with his last $40 buzzed. Unknown number. Meet me alone. I have an offer. Jacob's voice, smooth as poison. Abandoned warehouse on Dock Street. Midnight. Come or don't. Your choice. The line went dead. Tom looked up from his coffee. You going? I have to know what he wants. It's a trap. Everything's a trap. Daniel stood. But I'm out of options. Midnight found Daniel in the shell of what used to be a textile factory, now just rusted machinery and broken windows. Jacob emerged from shadows. Expensive coat pristine despite the grime. You look terrible, Jacob observed. What do you want? To make you an offer. A way out. Jacob pulled a document from his briefcase. Drop the investigation. Sign a statement saying you fabricated everything due to mental illness. In return, I give you $10 million cash. The factory stays open. Workers keep their jobs. And Sarah Mitchell gets $1 million for Emily's treatment. Daniel's heart stopped. Emily's treatment. We know about the leukemia. We know she has less than 3 weeks to start chemo, or the damage becomes irreversible. Sign this. She lives. Refuse, she dies. Simple math. You're asking me to let you get away with murdering my wife. I'm asking you to be practical. Jacob's smile was razor thin. What would Michael Mitchell want? For you to let his daughter die for revenge, or for you to save her life? Daniel stared at the document. His signature would mean 3,000 workers keep jobs. Emily lives. Sarah gets financial security. But Richard and Jacob walk free. Margaret's killers face no justice. Corruption continues. Future victims suffer. You have 24 hours, Jacob said. After that, we file bankruptcy. Factory closes. 3,000 unemployed right before Christmas. And Emily, well, cancer doesn't wait. He left the contract on a rusted work table and disappeared into the night. St. Patrick's Church was empty at 2 soon, except for Father Murphy, who sat in the front pew like he'd been expecting company. Daniel Harrison, the elderly priest's voice echoed. I wondered when you'd come. Daniel collapsed into the pew beside him. Father, I need guidance. Is it a sin to let evil win if it saves an innocent life? You're asking the wrong question. Then what's the right question? What kind of man do you want to be? And what example are you setting for Emily if she lives because you sold your soul? Father Murphy turned to face him. Her father died with honor. Will you live without it? But she's 7 years old. She's dying. How can I choose revenge over her life? Only you can decide what weight a child's life carries. I cannot judge that choice. The priest stood slowly. But I'll tell you what I know. Evil men count on good men choosing the easy path. They count on your love being used against you. And when you give them what they want, they rarely keep their promises. Daniel sat in the silent church long after Father Murphy left, Margaret's voice echoing in memory. You're stronger than you think. You just have to choose to be. But was he strong enough to let a child die? Tom found Sarah 3 days later, homeless shelter on 5th Street, sharing a cot with Emily. Daniel stood outside the shelter, gathering courage. Through the window, he could see Sarah holding Emily, both of them thinner than before, wearing donated clothes. He went inside. Sarah's face hardened when she saw him. Get out. Please. 5 minutes. I don't want your... I know about Emily's leukemia. Sarah's defenses shattered. She pressed her hands to her mouth, tears streaming. I can't save her. I've sold everything. I've begged every charity. I'm still 470,000 short. I can get you 1 million for Emily's treatment, guaranteed. Hope flared in Sarah's eyes, then died. What's the cost? Daniel told her everything. The deal, the choice, Margaret's murder going unpunished. Sarah looked at Emily, sleeping on the cot, pale, fragile, dying. They killed your wife, Sarah whispered, and you'd let them go to save my daughter. I don't know. That's why I'm here. You're her mother. Tell me what to do. Sarah walked to Emily, touched her daughter's thin face. Then she looked at Michael's photo, still in her pocket. Michael always said, "Never negotiate with evil. It always costs more than you think." But he also said, "Protect the innocent at all costs." I remember. I'm her mother. I'm supposed to protect her. How can I choose her death? You're not choosing her death. You're choosing what she lives for. Sarah's tears fell onto Emily's blanket. I need to ask Emily. She deserves to choose what her life means. She's 7. She's dying. She has the right. They woke Emily gently. She stirred, opened those old soul blue eyes. Baby. Sarah's voice broke. Mommy needs to ask you something important. Emily sat up, so small in the donated pajamas. Is this about the medicine I need? Sarah froze. How do you know? I heard the doctors. I'm not stupid. Emily looked at Daniel. Mr. Harrison, are there bad people hurting others? Daniel couldn't speak, just nodded. And you can stop them, but only if I don't get medicine. Another nod. Emily was quiet for a long moment. Daddy used to say heroes don't leave people behind. If I take the medicine and bad people keep hurting others, I'm leaving people behind. Baby. No, Sarah sobbed. But Mommy, I don't want to die either. Emily's voice was small, scared, brave. Can't we do both? Fight the bad people and get medicine. There's no money without the deal, Daniel said. Then we find other money. Emily grabbed his hand. You're smart. Mommy's brave. We can find another way. Can't we? Daniel looked at this 7-year-old child, dying, still believing in hope, still believing good could win. And something Margaret used to say came back to him. The impossible just takes a little longer. Yeah, he said, voice rough. Yeah, we can find another way. Tom appeared in the doorway. Boss, my daughter found something else in the files. Jacob's planning to tank Harrison Industries stock tomorrow and buy it cheap through a shell company. If we move first. How much could I get for my 45%? Daniel's mind was already racing. Current price. $714 million. But if you flood the market, I need $500,000 for Emily, $50 million for a worker safety fund, the rest to outbid Jacob and buy the company assets in bankruptcy. Daniel stood. Can we do it in 18 hours? Tom grinned. Guess we're about to find out. Emily squeezed Daniel's hand. See another way. Sarah looked between them, the broken billionaire, the fired factory worker, and her dying daughter. This is insane. Probably, Daniel admitted. But it's better than evil. He turned to Tom. Call your daughter. Tell her to meet us. We've got a war to start. Hour 1, the stock sale. Daniel sat in a McDonald's parking lot at 3 a.m., burner phone pressed to his ear, talking to the head of Meridian Capital, a private equity firm that had been trying to buy into Harrison Industries for years. Let me get this straight, Marcus Chen said. You're selling 2.1 million shares at $300 each. $40 below market price. $630 million. And I have 2 hours to wire the funds. Correct. Why the discount? Because in 24 hours, those shares will be worth $50. This is your chance to own a major company at 90% off. Silence. Then, what do you know that I don't? Everything said. Daniel sent over a single page from Jennifer's files, just enough to prove he wasn't bluffing. Wire the money to this account. You'll thank me later. At 4:47 a.m., Daniel's burner phone pinged. Transaction complete. $630 million, minus fees. He stared at the number, then immediately transferred $500,000 to St. Mary's Hospital with instructions, Emily Mitchell. Leukemia treatment. Start immediately. $50 million went to a newly created Harrison Workers Relief Fund, managed by Tom Brennan. The rest, $580 million, sat waiting for the bankruptcy auction. Hour 4. Emily's treatment. Sarah sat in the hospital, holding Emily's hand as nurses prepped her for the first chemotherapy session. Doctor. Chen had been skeptical when the payment cleared at dawn, but money talked. "Mommy, I'm scared," Emily whispered. "Me too, baby. But Mr. Harrison kept his promise. He found another way." Emily smiled weakly. "Daddy would like him." Outside the treatment room, Daniel watched through the window. He'd given up a fortune, but seeing that little girl getting the medicine she needed, it was worth more than any mansion. His phone buzzed. "Tom. Boss, you need to see this." Or 7. The media blitz. By noon, every major news outlet had received Jennifer's complete files, not just snippets everything. 73 million in offshore transfers, bribes to inspectors, Margaret's delayed medical claims with email chains showing deliberate obstruction. Daniel stood outside Channel 7's studio as the anchor read breaking news. Documents obtained by this station show systematic embezzlement at Harrison Industries spanning 5 years. CEO Richard Harrison and CFO Jacob Ross allegedly diverted funds to offshore accounts while cutting worker safety measures. Federal investigators confirm authenticity of financial records. The stock began to fall. $340. $300. $280. Plummeting as investors panicked. Daniel's phone rang. Jacob. He didn't answer. It rang again. Richard. Ignored. Text from unknown number. "You just declared war. You'll regret this." Hour 10. The collapse. By 4 p.m. Harrison Industries stock had crashed to $89. Trading was halted. The Securities and Exchange Commission announced an emergency investigation. The board called an emergency meeting to contain the crisis. Daniel watched it all from a diner television. Tom beside him, both eating their first real meal in days. "Jacob's buyer is Prometheus Capital," Jennifer said, laptop open. They were set to acquire Harrison Industries assets for $200 million after bankruptcy. But she pulled up a news article. They just issued a statement withdrawing their offer. The PR nightmare is too toxic. Tom laughed. "So Jacob's stuck with a worthless company and federal investigators breathing down his neck." "Not quite worthless," Daniel said. "Those factories, equipment, patents still worth $300 million in a clean sale. We just need to be the ones buying." His phone rang. Tom's number, but not Tom's voice. Daniel Harrison, a woman, breathless, terrified. "This is Angela from the factory. Tom's daughter sent me. They're shutting us down. Right now. We're all getting termination texts." Hour 11, the workers' revolt. Daniel and Tom raced to Harrison Industries. The parking lot was chaos. 3,000 workers standing in the snow, staring at phones, faces shocked. "Effective immediately. All operations cease. You are terminated. Final paychecks will be mailed." Tom climbed onto a truck bed, shouting over the crowd, "Listen up." The workers turned, angry, scared. Daniel Harrison just sold everything he owned. $500,000 went to save a little girl's life. $50 million is going into a fund for U.S. He's fighting for the people who actually do the work. "But we're fired," someone shouted. "Not if we refuse to leave." Tom pointed at the factory. "Richard Harrison can't close this building if we're occupying it. We lock ourselves in, call the media, and make them drag us out in handcuffs on national television." For a moment, silence. Then one worker started walking toward the factory entrance. Then another. Then all 3,000. A wave of bodies moving with purpose. Security tried to stop them. But what were 6 guards against 3,000? The workers flooded inside, locking doors from the interior, barricading entrances with equipment. Within minutes, social media exploded. Videos of workers chanting, holding signs, "We built this company, we're not leaving." And let the Save Harrison workers trended nationally within an hour. Politicians were forced to comment. Local news helicopters circled overhead. Daniel watched from across the street, tears streaming down his face. They were fighting for themselves, for each other, for what the company should have been all along. Hour 17, the ultimatum. At 11 p.m., police arrived, 30 squad cars, riot gear, bullhorns. Richard stood behind them, his lawyer beside him. You have 1 hour to vacate the premises or face arrest for trespassing. All 3,000 of you. Criminal records, no unemployment benefits, no references for future jobs. Inside the factory, workers looked at each other. Some were crying. Many had families, mortgages, kids to feed. An arrest record could destroy their futures. Tom's phone rang. He answered, listened, then walked to the window where Daniel stood outside. "Boss," Tom said through the glass. "They're scared. We're all scared. Police are serious. They'll arrest every single person in here. Families will be destroyed." "I know. Richard's giving us 1 hour. After that, it's over. We're done." Tom's voice cracked. "What do we do?" "I need you to tell me what to do." Daniel looked at the factory, his grandfather's legacy, his father's life's work, now occupied by the people it should have protected all along. Then he looked at the police line, the media cameras, the spotlight on everything that happened next. He had 1 hour to save 3,000 jobs or watch good people go to jail. No money left, no power, no company, just a choice. Daniel started walking toward the police line. "Mr. Harrison," Tom shouted. "Where are you going?" Daniel didn't answer. He pushed through the barricades, past confused officers, straight toward Richard. His brother's smile was venomous. "Come to surrender. Come to make you an offer you can't refuse." Richard laughed. "You have nothing left to bargain with." "Wrong." Daniel pulled out his phone, held it up. On the screen, a document. A single page from Jennifer's files. The one he'd kept back. "I have the evidence that proves you murdered Margaret. Not just delayed treatment. Actively altered her medical records to justify denials. Your signature, your emails. Murder charges. Richard. Not fraud. Murder." The smile vanished. "I'm giving you 60 seconds to call off the police and reinstate every single worker. Or I send this to every prosecutor in the state." Richard's hand moved toward his pocket. "Don't." Daniel's voice was ice. "I'm not bluffing anymore." "Neither am I." Richard pulled out a gun. The world exploded in screams and movement. Police shouting, media cameras swiveling, workers pressing against factory windows. The gun pointed at Daniel's chest. "You want to be a hero." Richard's finger was on the trigger. Heroes die first. Time slowed to a crawl. Daniel saw the gun, saw Richard's finger tightening on the trigger, saw police reaching for their weapons, too far away, too slow. Then movement from his left, Tom Brennan, launching himself from the factory entrance, crashing into Richard's arm just as the gun fired. The shot went wild, shattering a streetlight. Glass rained down as police swarmed Richard, forcing him to the ground. The gun skittered across pavement. "Get down! Get down!" Officers tackled Richard, knee on his back, cuffing his hands. "You're under arrest for assault with a deadly weapon," Richard screamed, thrashing. "Do you know who I am? I'm the CEO of Harrison Industries. I'll have your badges." "You're a man who just committed attempted murder on camera," an officer said. "You have the right to remain silent." News helicopters captured everything. Every news station would play this on loop. Billionaire Richard Harrison, gun in hand, being dragged away in handcuffs while workers cheered from factory windows. Daniel helped Tom up, both of them shaking. "You could have been killed." "Yeah, well," Tom dusted off his jacket. "You were going to let him shoot you to protect my family. Figured I'd return the favor." Before Daniel could respond, black SUVs screeched into the parking lot. FBI agents poured out, led by a woman in a dark suit. "Jacob Ross." She approached a Mercedes where Jacob had been watching from a distance, engine running, ready to flee. FBI, step out of the vehicle. You're under arrest for wire fraud, embezzlement, insurance fraud, and conspiracy to commit murder. Jacob tried to run, made it 3 steps before agents tackled him to the asphalt. This is a mistake, Jacob shouted as they cuffed him. I have rights. I want my lawyer. You'll get your phone call. Agent Torres hauled him to his feet. But first, we have some questions about $73 million and a woman named Margaret Harrison. She looked at Daniel. Mr. Harrison, we'll need your statement. You'll have it, all of it. Daniel pulled out his phone, sent the final document, the one proving Richard had actively falsified Margaret's medical records. Including this. Torres read it, her expression hardening. Criminally negligent homicide just became premeditated murder. Mr. Ross, Mr. Harrison, you're both looking at 25 to life. They were loaded into separate vehicles, Richard still screaming threats, Jacob silent and pale. As the FBI cars pulled away, the factory doors opened. 3,000 workers poured out, not running, not hiding, celebrating, chanting Daniel's name. He stood there, overwhelmed, as Tom climbed onto a truck bed again. Listen up. Tom's voice carried across the crowd. Harrison Industries is done, but Daniel Harrison just bought the assets in bankruptcy. And when we rebuild, WE become the shareholders. Not billionaires, not boards. US. The people who actually do the work. The roar was deafening. Daniel climbed up beside Tom, raised his hands for quiet. The crowd settled, 3,000 faces looking at him with hope he didn't deserve, but would die trying to earn. 30 years ago, my father built this factory on one principle. A company is only as strong as its people. I forgot that. I let grief and trust in the wrong men blind me. You paid the price, and I'm sorry. Someone shouted, We forgive you. I don't forgive myself, but I'm here to make a promise. Daniel's voice strengthened. I sold everything I owned. This company as it was is gone, but we're going to rebuild it the right way. You'll own 60%. I'll take 40% and a salary like everyone else. Decisions you vote, benefits you decide, safety you enforce. Tom leaned in. You serious worker cooperative. Dead serious. The crowd exploded, workers crying, hugging, disbelieving. A young woman pushed forward Jennifer Brennan. Mr. Harrison, the bankruptcy auction is Monday. You'll be bidding against 3 other companies. Let them bid. We have $580 million and the moral high ground. We'll win. 6 months later. The sign went up on a cold March morning. Mitchell Harrison Industries, employee owned. Daniel stood watching workers stream in for first shift, not as employees now, but as shareholders. Each person owned a piece of the company they built with their hands. Tom, now floor supervisor, walked over with coffee. Profit-sharing checks went out yesterday. Average bonus $12,000 per worker. Revenue, $340 million this year. Modest, but clean. Tom smiled. No offshore accounts, no bribes, just honest work, honest pay. Safety violations. 0, because the people doing the work are the ones enforcing standards. Tom paused. You know what the turnover rate is? 3%. Industry average is 34. Daniel felt something unfamiliar pride without guilt. His phone buzzed. Sarah. Emily's ringing the bell today. You coming? He typed back, wouldn't miss it. St. Mary's Hospital. Oncology wing. Emily Mitchell, now 8 years old. Hair grown back and blonde curls stood beside a brass bell mounted on the wall. Around her nurses, doctors, other patients in various stages of treatment. Sarah held one hand. Daniel held the other. Doctor. Chen smiled. Emily. When a patient completes their cancer treatment with no evidence of disease, we have a tradition. You ring this bell 3 times. Once for yesterday, the fight you won. Once for today, the life you have. Once for tomorrow, the future you're building. Emily looked up at Daniel. Will you help me? Together, they grasped the rope. One ring for the girl who'd stood freezing at his gate, asking for help. 2 rings for her mother who'd nearly died. For Michael who'd saved him. For Margaret who'd been taken too soon. 3 rings for the future. For second chances. For choosing to fight. The sound echoed through the ward and everyone applauded. Afterward, in the parking lot, Sarah stopped Daniel. You gave up everything. Your company. Your fortune. Your mansion. I gained more. Daniel. She took a breath. When Emily was sick, dying, I prayed for a miracle. I didn't specify what kind. Then a little girl knocked on a billionaire's door. That was the miracle. Sarah, let me finish. You could have walked away, taken Jacob's deal, saved your money. But you chose us. All of us. She stepped closer. The debt to Michael is paid. You don't owe us anything. Then why am I still here? Maybe because some debts turn into something else. She kissed him gentle, tentative, full of possibility. Emily's voice interrupted. Does this mean Mr. Harrison can be my new daddy? They laughed, breaking apart. Daniel knelt to Emily's level. Only if you'll have me, kid. Yes, but you have to read bedtime stories and make pancakes. Daddy used to make pancakes. I can do that. Christmas Eve. 1 year later. The factory floor was decorated with lights and garland. 3,000 workers and their families celebrated, children running between workstations, Christmas music playing, potluck tables groaning with food. Daniel stood by a window, watching snow fall outside. Emily, now 9, healthy, strong, ran up and grabbed his hand. You okay, Dad? Dad? The words still made his chest tight. Just thinking about your first dad, wishing he could see this. Emily led him to a corner where they'd mounted a memorial, photos of workers who'd built this company over decades. In the center, Captain Michael J., Mitchell's military portrait. Someone had placed fresh flowers there today. A note. Mission accomplished, brother. Rest easy. Mommy says Daddy sent you to us, Emily said. That you were his last mission. Maybe she's right. Sarah appeared, wearing a simple red dress. No designer labels. They lived in a modest house now, drove sensible cars, budgeted carefully. Daniel's salary as co-owner was $120,000 a year, same as Sarah's salary as Director of Worker Relations. They were happy. Speech time, Sarah whispered. Daniel climbed onto a platform. The crowd quieted. 1 year ago, this company was dying from greed. Today, it's alive because of you. Because 3,000 people chose solidarity over fear, chose each other over profit, chose to fight. He looked at Emily, at Sarah, at Tom and Jennifer, and all the faces that had become family. This isn't my company anymore. It's ours, and that's exactly how it should be. Merry Christmas, everyone. Thank you for letting me be part of something real. The applause was thunderous. Later, as families headed home, Daniel drove through snowy streets with Sarah and Emily, not to a mansion, to a 3-bedroom house with a mortgage and a yard where Emily built snowmen. He helped Emily out of the car. She ran ahead, then stopped. Dad, can we build a snowman for Daddy Michael so he's part of Christmas too? Daniel's throat closed. Yeah, kiddo, we can do that. They built it together, Daniel, Sarah and Emily under falling snow, a family built from grief and sacrifice and the choice to keep fighting. When it was done, Emily placed Michael's military cap on the snowman's head. Merry Christmas, Daddy. We're okay. Mr. Harrison, I mean. My new dad, he's taking good care of us, just like you would have. Sarah leaned against Daniel's shoulder. You did it. You saved us. We saved each other. Inside, the Christmas tree glowed, modest presents underneath, hot chocolate waiting, a life that mattered more than any fortune. Daniel looked at the snowman wearing Michael's cap and whispered what he should have said 10 years ago. Thank you for saving me. I'll take care of them. I promise. The snow fell softly, covering everything in white. A new beginning, a second chance. A family forged in fire, choosing love over revenge, justice over wealth, each other over everything. And in that choice, in that impossible, beautiful choice, they'd found something worth more than billions. They'd found home. 5 years later, Emily stood before a congressional hearing on workers' rights. At 14, cancer-free and confident, she held up a photo of her mother collapsed in that frozen break room. My mom almost died because her boss valued profit over people. I almost died because we couldn't afford medicine. But we're here today because one man chose differently. Daniel Harrison gave up being a billionaire to save us. Not because he had to, because it was right. She looked directly at the cameras. My father taught him something before he died: people matter more than profit. So I'm asking Congress, and I'm asking all of you watching, why do we make workers choose between feeding their families and staying alive? My mom is proof we can do better. The lesson wasn't about revenge or wealth. It was about gratitude, transforming into action, about family being built through sacrifice rather than blood, about choosing justice even when it costs everything. Daniel had learned what Michael knew all along: true wealth isn't measured in bank accounts, but in the lives you touch and the people you protect. Now we ask you, have you or someone you love ever been forced to work in dangerous conditions like Sarah Mitchell? Share your story below.